welcome to Do the Right Thing, your writing prompt podcast. I'm Matthias.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I are aspiring scribblenauts, but we never actually sit down and write to summon our creations.
So we're doing a challenge. Each week we sit down for 30 minutes. Our goal is to write a complete short story using 3 of 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read the stories, we talk about what we learned in writing them, and then we talk about stories written by you listeners.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing. A Doof
Media production. As usual, as is the new norm, this week we are only doing one story. Jarvis wrote his story, and so we'll be covering that. I did not. I took a break. I really should be writing every week, but I'm kind of destroyed from trying to keep up with my online classes, which they're all online now.
Yeah, which is definitely like one of the most difficult tasks anyone has ever asked
known to humanity.
Or
There's nothing ever been harder in my life.
Because nothing is worse when you click on the tab for your morning class, and then you do that, and then you click on the third tab for your late night class, and you find out, hey, I have an essay due in 2 hours. So, it's fun.
Yeah. So, but classes end in about 3 weeks, which is insane, and I'm losing my mind over it because I'm not caught up. So we'll see how that goes. But after that, I will try to be writing every week. But then again, every time I say something like this, I don't actually commit. So, and I'll be busy with a new podcast. So,
brand spanking new.
Winking at the camera. I'm almost ready to officially announce it and say the name and stuff like that. But very excited.
You have done everything beyond say what the name is.
Yes. I don't remember if I actually said what it was about, but it's very, very exciting. So,
and
anyway,
you better be watching every week.
Yeah, please watch my podcast every week with me. It's going to be me and Clarence, so that I'll say that much. Reading a particular work, that's my biggest wink. And talking about it, so I'm very, very excited. Anyway. Jarvis, how was writing this week?
Writing this week was a tad bit difficult. Mostly because I too have been bogged down this week with a lot of the online work that I have. Just a lot of stuff all due on the same day type beat. But I did manage to actually find some time later on in the week, it's yesterday. I found time yesterday. To sit down and write for a bit, but I kind of ran into this problem. And I had crippling writer's block. Nothing was coming. In fact, I didn't even feel like writing, which is very foreign from what my normal life is like. Because normally writing is, it runs through my veins. But this week I just didn't want to write, just really wasn't feeling it. So I decided to stop trying to focus on a coherent and concise and impactful short story, and decide just to kind of throw caution to the wind and try my hand at some poetry. In all of my classes, we've been reading a lot of poetry about multiple people, including Dickinson, which I have a lot to say about that, but I can't say it here.
What do you mean you can't say it here? This is our safe space, Jarvis.
Yeah,
you can say anything
that is
here.
True. My own gripe is I enjoy some of her works, but if you read more than 5 at a time, you get it.
Okay.
It's really, really good, really well done, but you get it.
Okay, sure. I feel like you could say that about a lot of poets. I mean, with Poe, right? Same thing.
Yeah, well, see, here's the thing, though. For me, at least, Poe has a wide range of poems, but each one is trying to tackle something completely different, in a sense. They are definitely adjacent to the other, but they're all trying to tackle different aspects of the life that Poe did live. And I guess the same is true with Dickinson. It's just that the way that a lot of things are put, it's the same. You know, there isn't that much variety in the widespread of her poems. Now, of course, like, if you're, like, when I'm in the mood, yeah, I can fuck with it. You know, I really, really like it. But
you could fuck with Dickinson, yeah.
Exactly. I just can't see myself doing what my teacher does, which is read her all day, and then finishes off with Wordsworth. So I don't know, not me.
You know, I've been considering. You know, I have a lot of trouble with poetry, and I think it's probably just because I'm not reading enough poetry. Like, it's like how are you supposed to write something that you don't know what it's supposed to look like, right?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
So that's on me. So I need to read more poetry. I just need to read more in general. I think a big problem is that we don't read that often. Like, sometimes I'll, you know, after not reading for a while, and I mean, we all have good excuses, right? Our attention spans are lower because of I hate just like always pinning the blame on technology, because technology is actually much more than just our phones, but because of technology, right?
That is true. Since like everything is now can be right in front of us, since we can get it so quickly, our brain doesn't really have to mull over it that long. So
sure. Yeah. And there's other factors, like, you know, if I'm reading for classes, right, I don't want, like, if I'm going to read something, right, I need to be reading stuff for my classes. So I should read that. And so, like, I don't want to read that. So I just don't read. Right. So, I think everyone's, especially like just after like high school, middle school, that I think everyone's reading amounts like really drop pretty fast. Like that everyone I talk to is kind of in a similar boat. Anyway, but I'll find I'm having a hard time writing after a while of not reading, and like I don't know, I forget how to do certain things in writing, and then I just
how do words work?
How do words work? Wordsworth. And then I read a thing, and then it kind of just makes sense again. I'm like, okay, let's follow these guidelines. So I think we all should just try to read a bit more. Obviously, a lot of our listeners don't really have this problem so bad because they're keeping up with Ward, or they read other Wildbow works, or they're keeping up with a book club, or they're keeping up with Kingslingers, or they're keeping up with Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality, or they're keeping up with Pact. There's a lot of stuff regarding
a lot of stuff to keep up
with reading in Doof Media. So maybe I just need to commit to more of them. Anyway, I guess what I'm just getting at is we should all probably read more.
Yeah, and I mean, especially during this time period. I mean, I know, at least in my boat, I've watched everything. I've played everything. I've done everything that there is to do besides reading. So,
yeah,
you know, if you're bored and at home, maybe alone or with a roommate, you can always pick up a book. Yeah.
You could reread Worm. If you haven't read it, you can read it.
Or read it for the first time, like me.
I'm rereading Worm. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah. No particular reason. Oh, it's fantastic. I love it. I still love it. This is my 5th read through, so yeah, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I have to commend you like 1,000%, because I find it so hard to not only reread but also like rewatch anything.
Really?
Well, yeah, because I don't know. I love that initial wonderment whenever you either read something or like watch something, because you're trying to figure it out as it goes. And as soon as you know what's going on, you can re-watch it and reread it, but it won't have the same feeling, which is fine. I mean,
yeah,
you can't capture lightning in a bottle twice. But no, I don't know. I just have a hard time rereading and rewatching anything, really.
Yeah, well, the thing is with stuff like Worm is that, like, I mean, it's been a couple of years since I read it, so So, I mean, it's a long enough work, right? Where by the time you get to the end, you've kind of forgotten the beginning. at the very least, you've forgotten what it feels like to be reading in the beginning. So when I first read it, I read it, and then I think I pretty soon after read it through with the audiobook for the most part. And then the next time was reading along with We've Got Worm. And then there was another time somewhere in there. I think I was reading it to someone else. Anyway, each of those were like slightly different experiences. And like you read it so fast that you miss things each time. And then at this point, it's been long enough where I've kind of like, I mean, I remember basically every event, but I don't remember how it felt to read it. So yeah, different experiences. But I'll talk more about that at some other time. So
yeah,
but yeah. So okay, yeah. So we've tangented a bit. We've taken this opportunity of not having 2 stories to just fill more filler in our episodes. Yeah. So not intentional.
Tell us if you like our meaningless filler.
Yeah, if you want us to just shut up and get this episode out,
or
that's
if you
totally
want the whole
okay.
thing to be filler, let us know.
You know what? We can do that. We can just record an hour of us saying nonsense. Like we could do that.
We like basically did that this morning.
Yes, talking about Warhammer for the most part. Anyway, let's get into it, Jarvis. Is there anything we should know before you read your story?
I guess not. Just, it's definitely throwing caution to the wind, trying something new out. And I do enjoy a lot of lines, but I would like to at least get your take and everyone else's take on the connectability between certain stanzas. So I can just go ahead and start.
Go ahead.
So the title of this one is All These Bottles and Nowhere to Put Them. I left halfway through our favorite show to slip into indiscernible media. Were you perceptive to it? The haze about. From morning to night, today was yesterday's twin, yet sunnier. So the open trees sway. The divide between the two, like rust on a good enough screw, or love from lust to greed or envy. The issue being, I woke up wanting, tension about my arms, pain down my legs, finding home between my knuckles and joints, lack thereof, spouting anger in her creases. The buzzing, as if anger latched to every thought, parasitic-like, as spoiled infancy, caught a one-way ticket to my heart, precipitating thought. But why anger? Wanton in want, made that day a mystery, exempt from the rest. Causeless effort, or latent syndrome, a day ill spent leaves little investigation. Could be XCOM, the death of Jane Kelly, the sniper, bold in effort but lacking in boom, was gunned down and lost by distant overwatch, between save files. Could be my coffee, agitated by isolation, same as the rest. Its flavor viscosity lost fervor, browning the mucus along. Its film, a murky creamer tan speckled mocha, pungent yet bland. Could be the drink, sedative and escapist. To places simple in bubbly intention, wading in the waters with sick and jovial. I question why me. Couldn't be but a disposition, inherent and abashed by myself. A polite white canvas with dingy backing. Lone, even with you here. I left halfway through the perfect dream, to song and dance at my door. What are we doing today? The same as yesterday. That's it.
All right. Great. I was about to say story, but this is poetry, so this is different. I really enjoyed it. There are some really great lines in here, and I'm really excited to talk about them. We haven't really done straight up poetry before, I don't think, right? There's been
this
some.
Is the first.
The closest was like Clarence's stuff, but it wasn't in stanzas either, right?
Yeah. So I guess this is the most like textbook definition poem that's been on.
Yeah, it looks like a poem. That's the main thing.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah, so I really so I think for the most part you're expressing this feeling of every day being the same and kind of being in this haze. I actually really like the title. I didn't like quite get it at first, but now I'm like thinking, I mean, the imagery that it comes to mind is probably not exactly what you intended, but like all these bottles and nowhere to put them. There's something to me very depressing and like exasperating and frustrating about just like having your table, your kitchen table covered with stuff. Yeah. Like I hate not being able to put stuff down so much. And I don't know why, but like this idea of just like your surfaces are kind of covered with bottles, and then you're like you're holding more and there's just not room to put it down. I think I mean, I don't know if that's what you meant, but you know, if we want to like symbolize that imagery some more, there's something about like having problems and not dealing with the other problems, and now you have more and you can't put down your problems because there's so much other stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, at that point, I think I'm probably bringing too much to the text, but yeah.
No, I mean, like the title itself, at first it was a holdover from what the idea was initially, and at first it was going to just kind of focus on this idea of anger that's stemming from nowhere, or anger coming from an uncertain place. And in my mind, all of my anger I bottle up and I keep on these very nice shelves in my mind temple.
Okay.
And I guess the imagery that I'm trying to bring across is that what do you do when like there's nowhere to put it anymore, and like how do you figure out what to do after that, or like what that feeling is. And for this, yeah, definitely I was trying to capture that feeling, but also in relation to being, I guess, quarantined, or like this kind of like shut in, every day is the same type feel,
Yeah, there's the pain becomes physical. The issue being I woke up wanting, tension about my arms, pain down my legs, finding home between my knuckles and joints, lack thereof, spouting anger in her creases. So like without a mental outlet, it kind of goes physical. I think at that point though, I think something it could have benefited from is just like a stanza talking about like how are you recognizing that anger? Like, what does that anger look like? Like, are you being snappy at people? Are you just like getting frustrated with like tasks? Like, what does that anger? How does it manifest? I think would have been good to show that in imagery. But because you go from mostly like, to me it's this like the hazy feelings, today was yesterday's twin. There's a haze about, just the idea of waking up wanting, right? And then you go to talking about the anger and like where it's coming from, right? And I like the section where it's the repeated could be, could be XCOM, could be my coffee, could be the drink. Trying to find where this bad feeling is coming from. I really like those. But before that, there probably should be like this is what the anger is, right? Like, how are you noticing that something's wrong?
Yeah, and I feel that was definitely one thing that I kind of saw as I was finishing up on my time is like it definitely goes from one to the other, and I was kind of having difficulty trying to figure out how to explain this anger that doesn't show physically, right? Because I know, like, maybe this is going deeper into, like, how I feel anger, but I don't really express anger. I just feel it, and it, like, wraps around every thought, So...
Really?
If I am angry, I'm going to be angry all day, because my body doesn't know how to, like, get rid of that, even if I don't know what I'm angry at. So I guess that's just kind of what I'm trying to bring across in this poem, is that idea of anger that has a stem and you feel it, but you don't know how to get rid of it, and nothing that you do can really kill that thirst, that hunger that you have.
Mm-hmm. So when you say you're feeling it all day, like how, like it's not expressing physically, right?
No.
But like, is it expressing mentally? Where like, I mean, for me, sometimes I'll just notice myself like the way that I'm phrasing things in my head is just really like unfair and like kind of spiteful, or like I'm blaming stuff that doesn't make sense. Like, I mean, recently I've just been like very frustrated when like technology doesn't do what I wanted to do, even though like it's a machine. Like, there's no reason to get pissed. I just got to replace the batteries in my remote, right? that kind of thing.
You just have to wait 2 minutes.
Right. So that's how it kind of manifests for me, where I'm just like, okay, well, like now I don't even want to fucking watch TV, and it's like, okay, just calm down. So yeah, that's what I'm suggesting, is putting in a stanza identifying that.
I guess for me it's very similar, except it's okay. So, have you ever listened to like doom metal? Okay, so you know when the guitarist strums and it's this lower register that just kind of drums and it hangs there for a while, and you as a listener might sway back and forth with the music.
Sure.
That's kind of the mental space, right? Except it's just a lot of lethargy, and it's it basically, when I get angry, it's anger wrapped in depression, so I guess my signs of anger are signs of depression, because as a child I didn't know how to deal with any of that, so I guess it just kind of got all mixed up, so I'm not really sure, but so I think the hardest part in actually writing this is not only trying to figure out how to describe how my anger is represented with myself, but also how do you bring that across on the page, and then how do you do that in stanzas?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I feel like going back, there are a lot of things I would want to do differently. First and foremost, just time. Like I did write this in 30 minutes, which I'm astonished I got that much out. That quickly.
I mean, I can't do stanzas like that in a timer or out. So
yeah, I think it was just because it was just on my mind all day or something. But so yeah, I mean, I feel that if I did have a second chance, I would take a lot more time, like a lot more time, just trying to not only figure out how each stanza works, but how it works with the entire story as a whole, and if the idea that I'm trying to bring across comes across. And yeah, just that. Definitely working on the ending.
Sure.
I'm not sure if the very last stanza comes across right.
So one like little thing that it seems I'm not fully grasping is, so like in the beginning and the end you are kind of addressing a person, right? Yeah. The beginning has, I left halfway through our favorite show to slip into the indiscernible medium. Were you perceptive to it? The haze about? And then at the end, I left halfway through the perfect dream, which is kind of calling back to that, is what it feels like to me. The song and dance at my door. What are we doing today? The same as yesterday. It feels like, I mean, there's no person being addressed. Well, I guess before that it says, a polite white canvas with dingy backing, lone even with you here, right? So, who is this you, Jarvis?
This is the other. So I feel that this you is a stand-in for anyone, but in my case, the you is like a roommate, right? Someone who is there with you probably through your day to day, especially when you spend all day inside. But someone who has their own thing going on, so they're not always with you, in a sense.
Yeah, okay. That kind of carried through to me. Obviously, I know that you're living with roommates, but like I think in the alternative analysis would just be like a spouse or whatever that you're living with.
Yeah,
I think it felt like just a companion. Just to answer what you were saying before about the ending, the song and dance at my door, what are we doing today, the same as yesterday? I actually really like that because I think it like really echoes the sentiment of like every day kind of being the same. But it doesn't connect as much to the anger part.
Yeah, same. And I think like one thing that I would do is kind of step back from the piece. In a sense to where I know a lot of things that I wrote in there only make sense if you know, like, I guess either my living situation or what's going on, which is fine. I mean, the whole point of poetry is to capture a moment. I'm trying to capture that moment, but I feel that on a second go, I would, what's the word for it? I guess make it more universal.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That's actually something that I wanted to talk about because so we're at a, what we do is weird. Okay. Specifically Jarvis and I, right? Because we're practicing our writing and we're doing it in a way where, you know, Jarvis and I just like read it to each other, right? So really our only audience for the most part is just like a good friend. Like that's what it feels like. Obviously, we also know that a bunch of people that we don't personally know are going to listen to it as well. So we're in this weird place where like we feel like we're writing very personal things because, you know, especially when you're writing for practice. And I encourage everyone who's doing the right thing to do this as well. Is that, you know, you're not. This is not intended to be like you're publishing this. This is not for a professional audience, right? It is practice for yourself, right? So like with this piece, there's like multiple things in here, you know, like you mentioned the kind of understanding about stuff with your life. But I mean, one specific paragraph is where you talk about XCOM, right? Which is so let me read it and then explain it to those who haven't played XCOM or even those who did and didn't get it immediately. So the stanza before talks about why anger, right? So could be XCOM, the death of Jane Kelly, the sniper bold in effort but lacking in boom, was gunned and lost by distant overwatch between save files. So in the game, you control squads of characters. Jane Kelly is a name, a random name that your character could get.
Well, actually, it's strange because in the it seems like Jane Kelly is a character, but
really,
she seems to always be in at least most of the runs I've done, the very first character that you get, and the first one that becomes a sniper, and it seems like it's like a reoccurring character. Sure,
I always rename my characters after people I know so that I care when they die. But anyway, so this is so what this stanza is talking about is you're playing the game and then despite your best efforts, that character died, right? So it's like you failed at one part of the game, right? And so you're mad about that like your game screwed you over. Yeah.
And it's like even worse but obviously she's lost between save files.
Right. So you can't recover her. You can't go back. So the thing that really makes it like if you haven't played XCOM or even if you have and you just didn't get it, right? Like this is confusing, right? But like, you know, if you're writing poetry for yourself, Jarvis, like that's like maybe it is XCOM, right? So like you could universalize it and like be like the character in my game died, right? I mean, you could make it sound good, I'm sure, but it also would like lose the detail of like this is the thing, you know, this thing that normally gives me joy, you know, was disappointing in this aspect. So we're like at a weird crossroads where like you're writing, especially with poetry, it goes even further. And you know, last week or the week before, whenever I wrote that really emo thing, right? What was I talking? I don't even remember. This is something about relationships.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, but it was a conversation between two people. I forgot what the conflict was.
Yeah, it's like friends breaking up, I think.
Yeah,
basically, and so just at a weird place where like, you know, as part of, you know, being a writer and poetry even more is that, you know, you're revealing parts of yourself and you're trying to explore parts of yourself, but at the same time, like, you're doing it for other people. So it's both for yourself and for other people. Anyway, I'm probably repeating myself over and over, but just it's an interesting confluence of like intentions and like audiences. So,
and I feel like
I'm just trying to figure it out, I guess.
Honestly, I'm trying to figure out exactly where it stands too. I mean, I know one thing that I would like to try is, because I've noticed like through reading it multiple times, right? There are moments that are a lot more literal than others. And I'm not sure if they find like common footing in the same piece. I feel like either I choose one or the other, or just try and work harder to exemplify certain parts of it.
Sure.
So like, for instance, with the like XCOM, that's definitely something that on the second go I'll probably cut because it doesn't make sense in the rest of it. But at the same time, it's definitely like a fun little stanza that I made, and on this day that I was angry sad, the only three things that I did do was play XCOM, drink coffee, and I guess drink alcohol. So I guess I was pulling too much from my own life, which of course those are things that can change, getting moved around in a second go. So.
Yeah, I guess, figuring out how to universalize it, and like, I would just finish right there, actually. Figuring out how to universalize it, and like what is applicable to like a lot of people, and for many moments it's difficult.
If I learned anything from this process, I learned that I really like my coffee stanza. Mostly because of the what was it? It was like creamer tan speckled mocha. I just like how that sounds. But yeah, I think the thing that I learned is something that I know that I enjoy doing and gives me a lot of satisfaction is making sure that not only does the lines sound right, but they, at least in my mind, should also have a rhythm to it. So I basically throughout this, I was just trying to figure out rhythm using certain things. Not really rhythm throughout. I was just trying to create as many quote unquote interesting stanzas as possible that has like a good ring to it. So yeah, that's one thing. And also I would love to try my hand at poetry again. Definitely, spend a lot more time and probably not only have stronger inspiration, because this week was definitely a dry week for me, but also just kind of have a stronger idea of what I want it to be. Because I know with this, it ranged between just a poem about anger to a poem about wanting while having to stay inside, to a mixture of both. So just, I don't know, kind of refine it down to something that's a little bit more poignant.
Sure, yeah. Well, yeah, is there anything else we want to talk about before we move on?
I guess not. Just thanks for listening.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about listener submitted stories. So we're going to talk about 5 stories today. Let me find where I wrote the stuff. And of course, as usual, we're going to spoil these 5 stories very much. Spoil. So after we announce them, you should pause the podcast and then go and read them, because there's lots of twists and turns, and they're best enjoyed without us spoiling them. So, and of course, as usual, we really wish that we could talk about every single story, but of course, there's only so much time in a given podcast, and we want to give good feedback. So. All right, we'll be talking about stories from Zakatigi, Ace of Sword, Glittering Coast, Reddish Kangaroo, and Calinero 985.
Nice. And first up is Reddish Kangaroo with My Hero.
Reddish Kangaroo story, My Hero. So we start off with, we see this maiden who's naked and chained to an altar of ancient rune stone, which is a very, very dark image in this windy tower. And then this warlock apologizes and says, "Sorry, it's cold. I wish I could change it, but it's tradition. That's what I'm supposed to do. So sorry." But he's also like not that sorry. He's like being polite, but also like he did capture this maiden and stripped her naked and chained her to an altar of ancient rune stone. And by the end of the story, is going to sacrifice her and stab her. So,
what else do you do with the maiden on ancient ruined stone?
I guess so. So basically the Gilda, who's the maiden, she's, trying to free herself. We're kind of seeing it from her perspective. And the warlock is like doing some ritual stuff. And just as he's about to start the ritual and, sacrifice Gilda, the door flies off its hinges and a noble knight appears, and, he looks how Prince Charming is supposed to look.
Chiseled.
Yes. With golden hair, right? But the warlock, complains about his entrance being impolite because, what I thought was funny is my alarm spells triggered at least 10 minutes ago. Were you just waiting in the hallway? Why did it take so long? So the knight, goes to attack, but then the warlock, banishes the knight
easily,
because even though magical rituals take a long time, this is his tower. He's had time to prepare. Anyway, and then he resumes the sacrifice and is gonna kill Gilda off screen. It ends with, "Now, if I could have a request, would you mind screaming for a bit? It'll help rebuild the ambiance." So it's this interesting thing where, he's being polite and funny, right? But he's also like not doing pretty horrible things. He's not like faking the magic, right? He's not just like being a loony guy. He's like definitely like going to kill her.
I know, like, one thing that I love is a playful villain. I don't know, it just adds this really nice levity to the story, but it can also lead to a lot more of those like darker moments, like towards the end, when he has to scream to rebuild the ambiance. That is hilarious, but at the same time, that's terrifying. I just really, really loved this scene that was like kind of built, because it's a great subversion of a lot of tropes that we're really used to. How like Prince Charming hops in and is supposedly supposed to save the day, but of course he doesn't, and how this evil person has the like upper hand. So I don't know, I just really, really like the scene. I love the imagery that was built too. It's really good.
Yeah, I thought it was a delightful read, and I'm sure Rich Kangaroo had a lot of fun just writing this kind of dialogue and stuff. So, my one little critique would be there's a couple places where like it feels a little bit anachronistic, where like the warlock says like dumbass, and it just like it didn't quite fit the character to me.
Really,
but
I felt. Yeah, I mean, I like definitely get how it wouldn't fit, but at the same time, there was no clear indication of like a time period. So,
well, it just felt like I felt like the warlock would like say something a little clever, That's all, really.
Okay.
But all right, so the next story we're going to be covering is by Calinero 985 with Primogeniture. So primogeniture is the the policy where the eldest son inherits everything from the father, right?
Oh.
That's how like kingdoms work and stuff.
Through primogeniture, or is the act of doing it a primogeniture?
Primogeniture is the like policy of that. And there's a bunch of other terms and stuff for the different other inheritance policies. Some of them aren't even patriarchal. So, anyway,
maybe they're matriarchal.
we appear in the war room of the House of Elderborn, right? And we have this character Elias who is waiting for the death of his brother because he's actually like planned his assassination via explosion. So his brother, who's named Rarian is going to get blown up. And Elias is waiting for that. He's decided to assassinate his brother because they're in the lands of the immortal elves. And because they're immortal, the only way they'll die is if it's by accident. And so it's going to be... I mean, Elias is already centuries old. And he doesn't want to wait literally forever for his grandfather and then his father and then his brother, who is older than him, to die. And finally bequeath to him his estate, which he feels should belong to him. And so he's planning the assassination of his brother. So we get this cool world building where, what is it like in a society where like everyone lives forever? There's kind of this problem that he describes that where like the empire is expanding, but once the like office of something is filled, it never changes, right? So like once you have, the governor of this, like why would it ever change? Because that person's going to live forever. So it's this interesting problem, and I really like the like feeling of like feeling trapped kind of. Mm-hmm. But in the event, so Rarian actually didn't get killed by the bomb. He confronts Elias and says that the human bomb maker that Elias had hired was actually Rarian's the whole time. And he's going to like punish Elias probably by like taking to a dungeon or maybe even killing him. Who knows? When the patriarch comes in, we kind of understand that that's like the patriarch of the family and kind of probably like a great grandfather or someone, the oldest male in the family, which head. Of course has all the power and stuff. So the patriarch kind of takes Rarian away and says Elias basically implies that Elias has 1 hour to leave. And then he's going to get like hunted down. And Elias decides to go to the lands of the humans, where the borders might even change more than once every century, because they're all so mortal and they change so much. It's the land of opportunity. So it ends with him running away. It's going to be a really interesting future for this character. So there was a lot of interesting world building of this immortal place and all the terrible things that happen from that. I really enjoyed reading it.
Yeah. The world building definitely takes the like forefront. It's so good, and it really makes me wonder where it's going to go, and I'm eager to read the rest of it. And the imagery is really, really great, especially when describing a lot of this kingdom. Like it fills my eye with so much wonder, and I really, really love it for that.
Yeah, I like this the kind of brushes of like, here's kind of what's been going on in the world. He had heard stories from the contested lands, those of the humans, stories of other second and third sons seeking out opportunity. If there was no room in the elven lands for them to take their place, they would go out and carve it for themselves from the humans. After all, why let them waste their land on mortal squabbles when it could be something eternal? So what I think was really cool about this is that like whenever they describe the human lands and like kind of how derisive they are of it, it really feels like, yeah, they're right that they are more powerful, but like there's clearly a misunderstanding. Like Elias is going to go to the human lands, but he's not going to just carve out his kingdom, and like it's not going to be easy, and he's not in the right at all. Elves are always really arrogant. So as a like small critique, I would have liked to see a little bit of world building of like what's going on with elven women, because they're not mentioned in the story at all.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, I don't know if the society is actually like all male or something. But I was wondering, with immortal, you have like the patriarch and stuff. But like what happens when you also have like an immortal matriarch, where basically, where are the women in the story? So
where's the women at?
Yeah. I just thought it would be an interesting angle of world building. to add to this. So, but yeah, I thought this was very, very interesting, and I've always enjoyed the idea of like a society where nothing changes, and like that's a good thing because dying is bad, but also like that makes it harder to change stuff. So, yeah, very interesting.
Very. All right, so next up is Glittering Coast with Fire in the Snow.
So we have this character who's in the throne room of the Snow King, the Snowy Emperor. Sorry. We kind of understand that if they're not a child, they're definitely very young. Mm-hmm. They're kind of confronting the Emperor. We come in right after they've like proclaimed a prophecy of some sort, and the Snowy Emperor is like putting them down. And the character announces that if his iciness, which is just delightful, so the main character is the chosen of the Fire Maidens. So right, we have this fire versus ice kind of imagery. We kind of understand that the Snowy Emperor has kind of like frozen his empire and like turned it to, we understand it's probably not a great place, and so like this person's gonna bring warmth back is the implication. And if the Snowy Emperor is not going to take him into his court and let the main character bring warmth in through the court, he's going to fight and strike down the Emperor. And so he like pulls out his sword, but the guards are already there and stop them before they can do anything. Then the Snowy Emperor basically says you can leave, but if he ever sees the main character again, he'll kill them. And now the main character is like filled with a fiery rage and vows to come back and end his life and his reign. So really, it's a fun confrontation that's going to end up happening. The setup for the quest, right? I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think this is. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this is really, really great setup for the story that is going to follow. I really, really love the dialogue between the king and the main character. Mostly because you're getting a lot of who the king is as a character and his importance. I do feel, however, though, like, for the ending to basically indicate that the main character is filled with this rage, I would have liked to, I don't know, see more from him. But that's just me.
Mm-hmm. My main critique, and I'm sure Glittering Coast is already aware of this, but I was a little confused on why the Snowy Emperor was going to let the Chosen of Fire go. Mm-hmm. He's pulling out a sword and going to threaten the Snowy Emperor, and he like literally tried to kill him or like wanted to. And Snowy Emperor just says, no, you can go.
Stop that.
Which I just wasn't sure what the like motivation there was, or why he wasn't like thrown, why he didn't throw them in the dungeon or something. That's just a little plot thing, and not a big deal. You just like, you want to end the story, right? So you don't have all the time to like decide everything. You want to get to where you want it to go, which is with the Chosen of Fire leaving and vowing to take revenge.
Yeah.
Not a strong critique, just that it could be a different kind of plot if the Snow Emperor actually punishes the Chosen of Fire for trying to kill him.
Yeah, definitely.
So next story is by Ace of Sword, which is Coming Around.
And it's the third in the series.
Mm-hmm. Which is this, we've talked about it before. It's this series where in this world with a sort of D&D-esque, similar, like D&D magic system inspired, but it's not the same thing. Magic system it's actually, I've really enjoyed the description of the magic system in this series. This main character is a mage eye, where most mages, when they can increase one attribute of their selves, they choose their mind. This character chose their eyes, so they can see magic. They're investigating a series of unconventional murders, where the murders are happening in very strange ways and strange applications of magic. The first time, it was a pressurized a bottle where it was made with a boil water spell that exploded and killed everyone, rather than like actually using like an explosion spell or something. And then last episode, I guess is what we would call it.
Last season.
Last entry. We saw this other character, a friend of the Magi, get killed basically by monoxide poisoning, a flame that basically all the air in the room burned out and they suffocated. And so we're kind of in the aftermath of that in this one, where the Magi comes and sees, their friend dead on the table, with the servant also dead, collapsed, and they're trying to figure out what's wrong here. And we kind of see their investigations as, he like makes a flame, puts it inside the room, and the fire turns off. And they're like, what turns off fire? Void spells do, which we understand are like vacuums, which like space, which so that would make sense why that would put out a fire, but they don't understand why it does. They kind of see it as like just fire, or void cancels out fire. That's just like what it does. Wood floats, rocks sink, right? Which I actually really... Ace of Sword was nervous about that kind of expression, that kind of thought process kind of sounding dumb, but I thought it was pretty reasonable, where it's like the Magi like finds that weird, but also like, there's not a science textbook to read, right? No one's discovered buoyancy in this world, so they don't really get it yet. They just know that, I should probably look into this. And so we actually, I thought they were kind of intelligent for that.
Yeah.
So basically they find out that it's the Wind Ward killed them, which is normally supposed to keep like breezes and wind from like coming in and rustling up papers, but in this time it like completely blocked any air from leaving, and so the fire spell that was in the room burned up all the air, and that's how they suffocated. And so Magi kind of discovered an undiscovered inherent property: air needs to move. And so they're kind of discovering science and I mean, not exactly science, but, properties of how the world actually works. But there's a step behind this murderer, right?
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting.
But yeah, I mean, I think one thing that I love is this magic system. Like, I love the scientific look towards it. And I really dig like magic systems that I can really wrap my head around. And throughout this series, I really dig the kind of like mystery novel-esque take on this fantasy world, and this entry just kind of pushes that even further. So not only am I looking forward to like where it goes, but after this section, like it's just ripe with so many different ideas. And I think it's like really, really solid. Like, I dig it.
Yeah, this is one of the series that I always look forward to seeing more about. The one thing that I think this piece particularly could have used a lot more was this is Blynn's friend, right? Mm-hmm. This is a good a long time companion, and we don't really see Blynn's reaction to his murdered friend very much at all. And like he sees his dead friend and immediately just gets down to business and figuring it out. So I think we could have had a lot more of him either trying not to think about his dead friend, or dealing with that a little bit and getting some emotion in there. Or I think that's the main thing that's missing here. Just
a moment, right? Because throughout it seems that the case seems very streamlined, but if there was that pause, that moment of quiet when Blynn can actually think about it, that would definitely elevate the piece beyond just like a really good piece of world building fantasy.
Yeah. I as another little thing, I think the man in the red robe could have been given a name, is just so that we can like attach and like start characterizing someone else, because they get enough dialogue that like I feel like they're enough of a character that they could have a name, and maybe making them like a little bit more intelligent, because he just seems like arrogantly like mad at like every suggestion that Blinn makes, without offering anything, which I mean, that character it's totally valid, but they really were just like the character that Blinn can just like be smart against. Although Blinn it's not so bad where it's like a snarky character, making fun of a straw man, but yeah, there could have been maybe a little bit more depth there as well. But as we said, we really enjoyed this, and we're always, this is a very interesting like mystery, and I think I would really love to see some connections of like so start finding some leads, basically, because we know that like we're figuring out how these murders happened, but we don't know why or who is doing them, and we don't necessarily need to know exactly, but like some suggestions, would be really fun. Anyway, talked about the story way too long. Thank you so much, Ace of Sword. Next story is by Zach Tiggy, and it's the second entry. The story is the second part of this Interpreter series. The last one was actually the last episode. So the one before, we were introduced as this character Alexis, who's kind of a journalist or is an investigative kind of person. Or she's going to interview this character who Thomas, what's his last name? Thomas Bale. And so she's arrived at this institute, and we kind of get that this is a modern world. In the last episode, she had she has a phone, but there's also magic, and particularly Alexis is very, very aware of everyone's attention. So she like knows where everyone's looking, what people are thinking about, kind of, and that's what is kind of her main ability. It's not entirely clear if like everyone has that or if it's like her particular specialty, but it makes her more nervous than anything, it seems like. She's a very kind of fearful person, but in the society full of magical violence, maybe that's justified. But she's here to see Thomas Bale, and she's viewing his holding cell, which is like it's unclear if it's just like constructed in a very strange way, or if it's constructed in a strange way with magic to make it worse, where it's like this weird slanted octagon where his attention is constantly, or Thomas's attention is constantly drawn like in a different direction, so he can never like focus on anything, it seems like. Which seems kind of horrible. But basically Alexis is readying herself to go in there, and I really like how her fear and how she deals with it is described. Like the guard kind of makes fun of her, because she's she hasn't dealt with these kind of protocols before, and so he's like, what are you, from the collectives or something, which we assume is like a bad, like kind of scummy or like a backwards part of whatever the location is. And so it says, for a moment Alexis had to remind herself to be polite, and that his attention is still cold, and she's absolutely terrified, and that punching him is probably not the best way out of the situation. She definitely composes irritation under the pre-existing red of embarrassment in her face. Better ditzy than a danger. So Alexis kind of like makes herself smaller just to get through these kinds of situations, and so that kind of reveals a lot about her and how she chooses to deal with stuff. But we see a little bit more about the society. There's something about the eye, and the society is in capital S. But she goes in to see the client, who is Thomas Blaine. It's kind of a scary military situation. As soon as the door opens, he says, "Your time begins now." She's only going to be there for 30 minutes. And finally, she feels a little bit better because she's going to be doing what she wants to. She's very excited to interrogate or to question Bale. She's the omnivoyant of the eyewitness, all capital letters there. She ends with it had been so long since Alexis had found someone so interesting to look into, and we have so very much to talk about. She says. So there's a lot of interesting stuff here with world building. The one thing I thought was missing is an explanation of why Thomas is so interesting. We understand he's probably like a criminal. In the last episode, we learned that he was an empath, but we don't really know what did he do, and that's what I was most interested in finding out.
Yeah, definitely. I feel in this second one, we get a lot more with Alexis, who is quickly becoming like a really cool character that we'll want to follow into further entries. And yeah, like the world building in this is definitely rounding out this world even more. And I am very I'm kind of in the same boat to where I am wondering why this person is so interesting, but I do feel that will probably be revealed in like a later chapter, because that seems like where it's going. So yeah, overall, it's another great entry that I really, really loved.
And another thing that I think I would like to see more of the better to see than a danger, more of Alexis being competent. She feels more comfortable at the end. I just want to see her succeed, basically. I want to see her, what is she good at, rather than just her fears. But those were very interesting as well, to see her kind of struggle. So Zakatiki talks about that they got a little bit lost in description. I think I could picture things pretty well, but it wouldn't hurt to just make things a little clearer as well. So, all right, that is the stories we're going to talk about this week. So thank you so much to everyone, and thank you to everyone who submitted writing. So thank you so much to Lucasop86.
Thank you, Reddish Kangaroo.
Kelvinero985.
Thank you, Glittering Coast.
Thank you to No Goodbye.
Thank you, Ace of Sword.
Thank you, Bisexual Punch Party.
Thank you, Zagatigi.
And thank you, Sarah Penguin. As well, I'd like to thank the people who commented 2 times. A couple people only commented once, and so I just remind you, those that I read left really long comments, and so don't forget, if you just leave another one, your chance of getting selected doubles, basically, or the amount of additional chance you'll get selected.
You get two tickets instead of one in the
drawing. So thank you so much to Sarah Penguin, Kelnero95, Glittering Coast, and No Goodbye. There was other commenters, but I think we'll keep it to those that comment 2 times. But thank you to those as well. If you want to be like all these amazing people, or maybe you haven't in a while, consider going to /r/do the right thing on Reddit, and going to the latest story thread and leaving a comment there. Leaving your story in a comment.
And also, if you want to see the words as soon as possible, so you have the most time to work on your magnum opus, well, you can go to our Twitter, which is @RightThingCast.
If you don't have a Reddit account, or you just want to let us know something, you can send us an email at rightthingcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and also if you want to support the work that we do, along with everyone else in Doof Media, well, you can go and hit up our Patreon. And if you donate $1, $2, or whatever you feel comfortable with, you won't only be supporting us in keeping on with the content that you like, but also you will get access to our exclusive Discord, which is pretty poppin'.
That's right. One big thing, we're approaching the next Doof Patreon goal, which is a Doof anthology. So that's kind of a really big deal. Actually, it's particularly for everyone listening. Once we reach that goal, we'll be doing this anthology. We'll be taking submissions from all our writers. So if you want to actually get yourself published in a physical book, reaching that goal is kind of a way to do that. So, I mean, obviously we'll talk about that more when we actually, reach that goal, but, that's the dream we have for it. So we'll have, writing from the Doof writers and, from submitters as well. So that's kind of a big deal. So we're only 7 away. So it's pretty damn close.
God, that's so close. 7?
Yeah.
That's like 2 times 3 plus 1.
Yep. That is how math. Yep.
So Matthias, what's going on, Doof?
Yeah, so there's some awesome stuff. The game club is happening on the 1st of April or of May. Sorry, my bad. I'm very, very excited about that. We're covering Hollow Knight. If you haven't played that before, or maybe you don't have time to play it, don't worry, because Ruben and I think some other people as well, but I know Ruben specifically is doing a Let's Play of it and has been uploading it to the Doof Plays channel. So we have 2 YouTube channels. We have the normal Doof Media channel and we've had it for a long time, but we've never actually used it, a channel specifically for our gaming stuff. So please go and subscribe to both and maybe check out Ruben playing it. There's been so much streaming recently. Scott is he has been off of work for a bit. He's actually been on paid time off, and so he was streaming Death Stranding, which I was really enjoying, surprisingly, which is just a game where where you deliver packages, except it's also anime. It's weird. What else? He's also been playing the Final Fantasy VII remake. So if you've never played Final Fantasy VII, maybe go watch Scott play it. He's kind of very, very enthusiastic about it. Again, another kind of anime game, and he's actually enjoying it. So, so we're doing a ton of streaming recently. It's really interesting that this is when that kind of kicks off. So a lot of exciting stuff. And of course, if you haven't checked out the Deep Impact pilot season, so Deep Impact by Elliot and Ruben, it finished up, and so they're doing a pilot season where they do a bunch of different episodes covering different stuff. If you haven't checked that out, please do. Every episode's kind of different, so you don't know. If you don't like one, you might like the next. So I know they covered the Sandman. The Sandman series, or is that a series? Is that a book? It's like comic series.
Sandman movie?
No, the one with Neil Gaiman. That he wrote it.
Oh,
Sandman.
Okay.
Anyway, I heard it was very good. So, a lot of stuff going on right now.
Yeah. So tune in to Doof.
That's right.
7/8 Central.
That's correct. That is when we aired the Doofs. The last thing I want to mention again is we're also doing discussion threads for our episodes. So if you want to talk about our episode and let us know some stuff, please go to the thread and let us know.
Exactly.
All right. What are the? I was going to ask what the words are next week.
Oh yeah. So next week the words are freighter, frame, restaurant, and theft.
So a freighter, as in like a something that takes freight or cargo from one place to another. So it could be a ship, or it could be
a train.
A train, for example. I don't think it would be I don't think it would be wrong to call a truck a freighter either. So transportation and stuff. What?
A body.
Oh, a body?
Have you seen Lucy?
No.
Oh, well, she was. So the reason why she got her crazy powers is because she was smuggling a experimental drug in her colon.
Okay.
So she was used to transport cargo.
Was she
a freighter?
Did they call her that in the movie?
No, I'm calling her that.
Okay. Fame, as in to be famous. I think that's the only definition for that word. A restaurant, as in, place that you eat at. And theft, as in to steal something. So, I'm kind of expecting a lot of heist stuff, a lot of heist stories. So yeah, that's going to be interesting.
So what story are you going to write next week, Matthias?
Yeah, so I've always been very jealous of my brother, who's the most incredible chef in the world. And I'm not saying as a compliment. There's no warmth in that statement. It's just a fact. He is more famous than Gordon Ramsay, more famous than Remy the Rat. There's no one... He owns every top restaurant on the planet and works at all of them, and actually and cooks the finest meals. And so but I want to get back at him, and I want some of that fame for myself. So what I plan to do is at the grand world ball for the unification government, because the governments are unifying under one culinary government. He's going to be cooking a grand meal for the new hegemon of the planet. And so what I plan to do is I'm going to commit a great act of theft. I'm going to sneak into the back inside a box with the rest of the stuff, coming in on a freighter, and then I'm going to come out of the box and I'm going to take the delicious meal out from under that little the dish thing, like the silver platter covering. And so when my brother, after completing this incredible meal, I will take it, and so he'll present to the hegemon nothing, and then be executed for his crimes against humanity. And then I will reveal that I stole the meal, and I will become more famous than my brother.
Damn, that was pretty good.
So that's my story.
I can't wait to read it. My story next week is gonna be a little personal, even more personal than any other story I've written. And it's just gonna be simply about me and the bros and the gals kicking back with a couple of brews, a couple of honeys. It's gonna be a great time. But hark, wait. Someone knocks at the door. And who else but famous Chad Dylan Cooper. Who is renowned around the world for not only being a great actor, but for stealing the Hope Diamond.
That's right.
And when he showed up at our door, we were just chilling, gliding, having a great time, and he came in and he started bugging all of our joints, right? Because he was like, yo, I need to hide this Hope Diamond here. And we were like, we don't want you to do that. You could have Corona. So then, to basically keep him from stashing it somewhere, we decided to tie him up. And we kept him. Have you used any of the words yet? Yeah. And we kept him in our adjacent room. And I don't know, he's kind of a pain, right? Because he only orders from 5-star restaurants, which is draining our bank accounts, because we kind of have to keep him alive, because if he dies, then that's a dead body of a famous person, a famous thief, and that's just not good for our business. So after about having him for about 6 months, we kind of decided that maybe we were a little bit too irrational when we tied him up. So we decided to send him on the next freighter to Kansas.
Okay. Brilliant story. I can't wait to see your whole write-up. I can't wait to hear the dialogue.
Can't wait to figure out what I just said.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you too want to be like Chad Dylan Cooper, or maybe, just maybe, if you want to be like your favorite guys, then you should do it.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing.
Do the right thing and subscribe to our feed. Do the right thing.
Yeah, like and subscribe.
Hit that bell
to get free merch.